So let's talk about something huge. Why do so many diets feel like they're just designed to fail? If you've ever been in that boat, you're going to want to stick around because, spoiler alert, it is probably not your fault. You know the feeling, right? You jump in, you're super committed, but then a few weeks later, you feel like you're right back at square one and you're just beating yourself up about it. But what if the problem was never your commitment in the first place? And that's a really powerful statement from psychologist Dr. Aaron Parks. It's also the core idea we're going to dig into today. It completely flips the script and shifts the blame from you to the entire system of dieting itself. So let's unpack exactly why that is. Okay, so first things first, we've got to tackle the biggest myth in the world of weight loss. This idea that it's all about willpower. You know, that we just have to try harder or have more self-control. But the science? Well, it tells a very, very different story. And this is where it gets really fascinating, because you have to look at the business model. The diet industry is a multi-billion-dollar machine, and it doesn't actually make money from your long-term success. No, it profits from a cycle, hope, followed by what feels like failure, which sends you right back out there looking for the next big thing. You know, a great way to think about your willpower is like your phone battery. You wake up in the morning, you're at 100%. But every single decision you make, at work, in traffic, with your family, it just drains that battery bit by bit. So relying on that same battery to resist cravings at the end of a long, stressful day, it's a strategy that's almost guaranteed to fail. It's just not a sustainable power source. But, you know, it's not just about psychology. Our own biology is actively working against traditional dieting. So in this next section, we're going to see how we're basically fighting against thousands of years of evolution. I mean, think about it from an evolutionary standpoint. For our ancestors, food was often scarce. Body fat wasn't the enemy. It was this crucial energy reserve that could literally mean the difference between life and death. So your brain is hardwired with these incredibly powerful defense mechanisms. When it senses you're losing weight, it doesn't think, oh, great, health goal. It thinks famine, and it sounds all the survival alarms. And this whole survival response, it actually has a name. Starvation syndrome. And here's the absolute kicker. It doesn't matter what your starting weight is. Restricting calories triggers this cascade of physical and mental changes in absolutely anyone, because your body is just trying to save you. The most dramatic proof of this comes from this incredible study right after World War II. Researchers took 32 healthy young men, and for 6 months, they cut their calories in half to study the effects of famine. And what they discovered was absolutely shocking. I mean, the results were just wild. These guys didn't just lose weight. They became totally obsessed with food. They were collecting recipes. They were talking about food constantly. They got depressed, anxious. They pulled away from social events. Their metabolism slowed way, way down as their bodies desperately tried to conserve energy. And then, once they were allowed to eat freely again, many of them started binge eating. Does any of this sound familiar? These aren't signs of personal failure. They are the literal symptoms of starvation. So you've got this super powerful biological drive to eat when you're deprived. And what happens when that drive smashes head-on into the psychology of dieting? Well, you get a perfect storm. And this image here just lays it out perfectly. It all starts with those super strict diet rules. That leads to both physical and psychological deprivation. That deprivation builds and builds until that biological pressure just gets overwhelming, and you end up eating more than you planned, maybe even binging. Then, of course, the guilt rushes in, which just reinforces that belief that, oh, I just need to be even more strict next time. And around we go. You know, there's actually a scientific term for this, which is kind of fascinating. It's called counter-regulatory eating. Normally, if you eat a big meal, your body regulates by making you less hungry later on. But for people on diets, it's the total opposite. Just thinking you've broken a rule can actually trigger you to eat even more. But we all know it by its much more common name, right? The what the hell effect. It's that all or nothing thinking. You eat one cookie, you feel like you've completely blown it, and suddenly the whole plan is out the window, and you might as well just eat the whole bag. And this is why those super rigid black and white rules are such a trap. The stricter the rule, like I must never eat sugar, the easier it is to break. But a flexible guideline, that allows for real life. It doesn't create that same overwhelming sense of failure. All right, so if the strict rules are the problem, what's the solution? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is learning to actually listen to your body again. And that all starts with understanding what kind of hunger you're really feeling. But let's be honest, that's a really tough question, isn't it? Especially if you've spent years ignoring or fighting your hunger cues. our signals can get all kinds of crossed. Are you physically hungry, or are you maybe just looking for a bit of comfort? This chart is an awesome guide for this. See, physical hunger, it kind of sneaks up on you. It builds gradually. Emotional hunger, on the other hand, often hits you like a truck. When you're physically hungry, you're open to different options. An apple might do the trick. But emotional hunger, it usually wants that one specific comfort food. And maybe most importantly, when you eat to satisfy physical hunger, you feel full and satisfied. Emotional eating, well, that often just leads to guilt. Okay, so we've unpacked the problem, the biology, the psychology. Where do we go from here? How do we actually escape the diet trap for good? Let's get into the solution. And the answer, and this is so important, is not another diet. It's not a better one or a stricter one. The real way out is to stop fighting your biology and start working with it. And that means shifting your whole focus from short-term willpower to long-term sustainable habits. So here's what that new approach actually looks like, step by step. First, we've got to ditch that what the hell all or nothing mindset. Second, eat regularly. It's so simple, but it prevents that extreme hunger and keeps your body out of famine mode. Third, we challenge those beliefs about good and bad foods to take away their power and the guilt. And finally, we start the practice of actually listening to, and yes, trusting our body's signals again. And it all comes down to this one simple idea, which I think is just beautiful. True sustainable well-being isn't found in perfect control and rigid rules. It's found in flexibility, in learning to adapt to the real needs of your body and your life. So I'm just going to leave you with this to think about. What could change if we stopped seeing our bodies as these adversaries we have to conquer with willpower, and instead we started treating them as partners to be understood and nourished? The answer to that question might just be the freedom you've been looking for all along.